problem is that the damage is already done by the time they're before the court. Our guidelines, our grids are definitely, as far as I can tell, neutral with respect to the person who's got before the court. Male, female, black, white, young or old. I think the answer is actually before they get into the criminal system. How are they getting into the criminal system? Are there issues with regard to profiling and going after a certain segment of the community? So I have to agree with Ms. Magnuson that as far as that issue on the guidelines is concerned, I have not, in my experience, having both been before the court as a defense attorney and as a judge, seen any disparate treatment with regard to the way we sentence people. It's how they come into the system that is where the problem is.
Thank you, sir. All right, so, and next question to you also, follow-up. Not follow-up, actually a new area. Very few criminal cases are ever taken to trial. Prosecutors are thought to overcharge to incentivize settlements. How will you prevent this and bring balance to your court? Jeffrey.
I don't think it's the purview of the court to limit what the prosecutor's office does with regard to how they charge cases. And frankly, in my experience, having sat on the criminal docket for the past month, I've noted that there is really good conversation going on. There's really good opportunity back and forth for dealing with these issues and trying to resolve the cases. The prosecutor's office does advise if a case is going forward to trial that there are holdbacks. In other words, that they can charge something else. And this, I guess you could look at it as a strong arm tactic to try to get settlement. I don't. I think there's plenty of opportunity up to the point of the omnibus hearing for them to engage in settlement negotiations with regard to what the original charging document is. But again, I don't think it's the court's purview to step over the line and say, prosecutors, you cannot charge this charge. Whether they can prove it is another story.
Thank you, sir. Dale, any question?
I couldn't agree with Mr. Batson more. I don't think judges are supposed to intervene in what the parties are doing unless it's clearly illegal. And if the charges are valid, then the prosecutor's office certainly has a right to do that.
Thank you, sir. All right, so then next question to you, Dale, is in the corporate sector, we encourage managers to make disciplinary actions more corrective than punitive. Would this policy work well in Washington? Why or why not? Or would this, I'm sorry, let me add this to add that. Would this policy work well in Washington's judicial system? Why or why not? This is encouraging managers to make disciplinary actions more corrective than punitive.
Well, actually, I think we're headed in that direction with things like the Veterans Court and the Drug Court. The idea is to try to remove the punitive value of those things and, if you will, keep the employee. And I think that's the direction that law is going in general. They're beginning to understand what is it that we punish and why do we punish, and does it really make a lot of sense? So I think we're headed in that direction.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Well, I think with 47% of our hearings lately being criminal court, I guess that's why a lot of these questions seem to be criminal court based. And I don't know if the intent of the asker was to constrict it to a criminal court interpretation, but that's basically how I'm looking at it as well. And I have to agree that we recognize, I think judges do recognize that we've got a high rate of incarceration. This is why we are trying things like Veterans Court, like DOSA sentencing, like family dependency court, so that we can see if there are better alternatives and actually see if we can do something about rehabilitation with regard to our citizens as opposed to simply throwing them in jail and doing nothing. I'm cognizant of the fact that in many cases people cannot access services in prison until they're 6 months to the door, meaning if they've got a 24-month sentence, they're not going to get anywhere until they're almost out. So we are trying to do something to improve that.
Thank you, sir. All right, this may be a quick question or not, I don't know. The question from our audience is, how many jury trials have you tried?
That's a really difficult question to answer. As a public defender with 6.5 years over a 31-year history of practicing, I really couldn't tell you how many, but I can tell you I've done it as a misdemeanor attorney and as a felony attorney, both in Florida and in Washington State. So I just can't give you a number. I can tell you as a judge, I have already done a Board of Industrial Insurance appeal, jury trial, and I have a jury trial starting as soon as I get back to the office.
Thank you, sir. Yeah?
None. I've been primarily in the family law area, and family law comes out of courts of equity, and you don't get jury trials in family law in general, because the courts were courts of law and courts of equity, and equity, you don't get jury trials in most equitable situations.
Thank you, sir. Next question, Dale, to you is, what bar organizations have ranked you, and how were you ranked? Do you know, sir?
I don't know. I didn't apply to any.
Thank you.
Well, I have, it's a pretty typical thing when somebody is going for a judicial position to submit to minority bar evaluations. And I've been rated by 4 different organizations. The Joint Asian Judicial Evaluation Committee, JAJEC, rated me well qualified. Latina Bar Association rated me well qualified. Q Law rated me exceptionally well qualified, and Washington Women Lawyers rated me exceptionally well qualified.
Thank you. So, aside from the bar rankings, the question is, what voluntary experience do you have that directly relates to augmenting your effectiveness as a judge? What voluntary experience do you have?
Well, Mr. Magnuson said something to me earlier today about public speaking. He says, you've been on stage, and I guess I have to admit my 40 years in theater, community theater, has really been a benefit to being able to be comfortable speaking. As a foster parent for the past 2.5 years, it's also helped me as far as increasing my understanding of the department and how it treats our parents and how it treats our foster parents in the dependency system. In the past, I've also done work as a volunteer attorney for people with AIDS and have been the president of one of the Washington Minority Bar Associations, which also enhances my understanding about our minority community and their needs.
Dale?
Well, I spent some time with youth in terms of their mock trials, and I've raised 3 children, so that's helping me to prepare. I've also been serving with the selective service system, and that's an adjudicative position. Fortunately, we haven't had to take a whole lot of action in that regard, but we are trained constantly. So I think that's helpful. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but when I was a shipyard worker, I was a metals inspector, and I made a conscious decision that it wouldn't matter whose weldments or whatever. It's either right or it's wrong. And so that, in a sense, is an adjudicative kind of thing. And favoritism didn't play a part in what I did. It was either correct or it was incorrect.
Thank you, sir. So the question to you, next to you, Dale. Again, the audience is quite interested in each of your background and history and qualifications. This question is, in the last 5 years, how many times have you been before the Superior Court as an attorney representing someone from Kitsap County, or how many times have you been before the Superior Court, period, however you want to look at it?
In the last 5 years, probably hundreds. We show up there quite often, especially in family law. But I've done evictions and all kinds of different things. The Superior Court is not foreign to me, and I'm not foreign to the judges of the court. They see me regularly.
Thank you, sir. Everybody's any question?
I probably estimate several hundred times. As a dependency attorney for the past 5 years, I would be in front of the court on a regular basis. We had hearings down, and I split between 2 counties for a period of time because they needed assistance down in Mason County. So I was in front of judges down there, general magistrates, commissioners down there. I was in front of judges here, commissioners here on a regular basis. Our trials were held in front of the Superior Court judges as well. So I think it's through that experience, through getting to know the judges that are currently on our bench, that's how I had them encourage me to apply for the position. So it was because they had seen what I can do and how I am with my cases in front of the court.
Thank you. So this question from the audience member is actually regarding a very specific issue. Question is, it is said in divorce that King County is for men, Pierce County is for women, and Kitsap County is for families. What will you do to continue our legacy? Which is, I believe, they're saying Kitsap County is for families, divorce cases.
I actually like that. You know, when we're judges and we're handling these cases, and I've done both settlement conferences and divorce trials, one of the hardest ones I had was probably one of the first cases I had to go to trial. It was months ago, and it was two parents who had children that were probably 4 children, 7 and under. And it was very difficult to make this decision about these parents, not only one moving from the state, but both moving from the state to different parts of the country, knowing they would be hundreds of miles apart, and I had to figure out who would get these kids. And when I made my decision, it had nothing to do with the sex of the parent whatsoever. I had to look at what was the best for these children, who best could meet their needs, who best was prepared to be the sole parent. So I appreciate that that is the sentiment that Kitsap County works to keep, to do divorces for the family. And I think that's true. We do try to make sure that we are not giving any indication that we favor one sex over the other when we're doing these matters.
Thank you, sir. Dale?
It's interesting that they talk about families because we're dealing with children when we talk about families, generally speaking. And the standard is what's in the best interest of the children. That's statutory. And so we have to look at that. And we have to say, we don't care what the parents want. We have to look at what the children need and what's their best interest. And that's pretty hard sometimes, even for attorneys like me, to accept that maybe my client isn't the best bet for the children. But the fact that the saying, I've never heard this saying before, but I think it's delightful, that apparently we're doing the right thing here. We're focusing on what's important for children. And I think that's encouraging.
Thank you. So this question is, I'm not too sure if I'll read it to you, and I'm not too sure if I have the interpretation correctly, is should the length of a judge can be expected to serve because of age be taken into account? So should the length of a judge can be expected to serve because of age be taken into account? I'm not too sure if Dale, this is a question
Well, I don't think that it matters as long as the judge is capable and competent. I don't think age should be a factor. It isn't a factor under the Constitution, except for retirement age at 75, which I guess we'd have to look at that, but I'm not there, and I don't think Mr. Bassett's there, so I don't actually, it's 55. I saw that he had a birthday about a month ago.
Yes, I did.
So I don't think that age, I think we're moving past the idea that you retire at 65 or that you're this at 66 or this at 70. People are still vibrant and stuff long into their later years. And I think that's a good thing. I think people ought to be able to continue to do whatever they do. So that's my answer.
Thank you, sir. I'm still waiting for my birthday card. Didn't get it.
Wait a long time.
There we go. No, actually, our Constitution, which has been in place for over 100 years, Article 4, Section 3A, sets out specifically that someone has to retire as a Superior Court and Supreme Court judge by the time they are 75. It is very important for the voters to take that into consideration because we need stability on our bench. And the bottom line is, how long can I count on this person if I want to put them in office to do the job? Is this going to be someone who's only there for a few years, who's not really going to get the experience under their belt and really be of no use to the citizens of this county? They're going to then all of a sudden go off on their own because they're retiring. I've got 20 years that I can serve this county, so I do think age is extremely important. I have the ability, based on my age, to provide at least 4 different terms, if re-elected, to this county and provide the stability this bench deserves.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question for you, Jeffrey, then is, why is integrity important in a judge?
Well, integrity is, I kind of look at it as something having to do with trust as well. Integrity means I can trust your decision, I can trust your judgment. If we don't have judges with integrity, we can't trust that we're having a fair, impartial process. It's just one of the most important things that any judge that gets up on that bench realizes I have to leave my personal views, my personal thoughts, my personal biases, which we all have, at home. I can't bring those into the bench. I have to give these people a fair chance in court. So integrity in how you're viewed and what you do on that bench and how I can trust that you are doing the right thing and I can trust your decision as being the correct one. It's an extremely important asset for anybody who's trying to be a judicial candidate.
Thank you, sir. Dale, same question.
I think that most attorneys and judges, I think most of them have integrity. I don't think that attorneys would come and ask me to run if they didn't think I had some kind of integrity. And our system really runs on trust. If a judge can't trust you, you're essentially done. You're ineffective. And I've been effective for 28 years, and I think integrity is a big part of that. Trust, that's all I say.
Thank you, sir. So this is actually our final question, and it's may actually work into the summaries, which is you'll have 2 minute summaries following this. And the question to you, Dale, is why do you want to be a judge? I actually did the emphasis that it was an editorial comment. I'm sorry.
Why? Why do I want to be a judge? I want to be a judge because I think it's time. It's my time. I want to be a judge because I think I have the ability to be fair, impartial. My whole life has been like that, and I think I can make a difference. I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say, except that I'm looking forward to a change in careers. It's a difference. It's a significant difference from being an advocate, being impartial. And I look forward to that.
Thank you, sir. Kevin.
Well, putting aside that I had 3 judicial officers propelling me towards this career, I come from a family where my father was a judge, my sister is an attorney, one of my brothers is an attorney as well. And I've always looked at it that you should strive to be the best you can in whatever career you're in. For the past 16 years, most of my work has been serving the citizens both in Florida and in this state with regard to dependency and trying to protect children and keep families together where possible. But that has a certain impact. And I want to be able to look at what I look at the last part of my career, the last 20 years, as having a wider impact for all of the citizens of this county. And that would be by keeping the position that I have as judge. I think we have a lot of ability to do some good work for the citizens with regard to addressing things like the Veterans Court, addressing things like mental health, trying to keep families together and trying to weed out justice, both justice and rehabilitation where necessary.
Thank you, sir. So that concludes our question and answer period. Now we move into our 2-minute summaries. And I know, Jeffrey, you began with the introduction. So Dale actually gets to begin with the summary section. Please, 2 minutes.
Well, thanks for coming out, first of all. Second of all, there's been a lot of concern, I'm sure, that I haven't done jury trials or criminal work. Let me just be very blunt. 28 years ago, I started a practice. My wife said, "Shame to lose all that education. Why don't you start your own?" And I said, "What, are you crazy?" But anyway, I did. And I had to learn quickly because I didn't have any mentors, I didn't have anything. I had to learn quickly. I'm capable of learning anything. I've learned foreign languages, I've learned metals inspection, I've learned the law. I think I'm capable of doing just about anything that I'm assigned to do. And I appreciate the fact that that may be a concern for prosecutors or defense attorneys. But the bottom line is, when you have people in front of your bench, they still are going to tell you what they want. They're going to tell you what the law is, and that's the way it is. I look forward to, this has been a real experience for me, and I look forward to your votes this fall. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. 2 minutes.
Well, I appreciate that Mr. Magnuson talks about learning quickly. I had the misfortune of being elevated to the bench about a month after judicial college, so I didn't have the benefit of going there first. And I've had to learn this job very quickly on my feet. I think I had my first trial within 2 weeks, which was a very scary proposition. But over the past 6-7 months, I think I've grown very well into this position. I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing. I fit in like a piece of a puzzle with this office. We have judges who have experience in varied fields, from corporate law to representing the city to criminal law to family law. I am probably the foremost with regard to dependency law with 16 years, and I've also got the most apparently with regard to personal injury with 10 years as a manager of a law firm under my belt. So I think I bring a lot of experience to the county for these areas that we need. Again, I think it's been very evident from the questions, there's a lot of interest here with regard to criminal law because 47% of our hearings are criminal hearings, and we need someone in there who knows this kind of law, who's done jury trials, who's handled appeals. I've handled 6 appeals already as a judge, 6 appeals in a variety of areas of law. And if you don't know appellate law, you're going to have to learn it. So I've been able to do that. In fact, I'm in the middle of a Land Use Petition Act appeal right now that I've got to decide. So when you come down to who has the best experience to do this job, the bottom line is I'm doing it. I've been doing it for the past 7 months. I've got great reviews from other people that have backed me and endorsed me, and I've got the backing of the entire bench. I may have only been in this county practicing before these judges for 5 years, but they are backing me, and I think that's very important to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that being said, first thing I want to bring to your attention is this commercial announcement.
Okay.
Is next week is that we actually are doing the Public Utility District Number 1, Commissioner District Number 1. We hope to see you here for this additional question and answer